it's one thing to go to Clarny for the first time. Okay, you're still in Ireland. Okay, you're in Kerry. Some people might say it's a different country, but okay, you're still in Ireland, right? But in the bigger scheme of things, right? If you want to go to, let's just say,
I don't know who you are, but welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. Sit back, relax, and listen about cameras, gear, settings, stories, and all things photography. Join Darren on Ireland's Best Photography Podcast. Let's go.
hello, and you're very welcome to episode 126 of the Irish Photography Podcast. My name is Darren. I'm your host this evening, and I'm joined this evening by a very good friend of mine, somebody who, I kind of grew up with my photography over the last number of years and became quite a very good friend of mine as well. I'm delighted to have him on the podcast. So, Rodney O'Callaghan, welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. How are you getting on, buddy?
Hi, Darren. Getting on great, thanks, and thanks for the invitation. Looking forward to it.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. How are things going with you at the moment, boy? I see that you were getting a couple of local shots in Doneraile and such like that.
Yeah, enjoying it, Look, getting out as much as I can. Photography has been great for the mind over the last number of lockdowns. We can't say lockdown now because it's a few lockdowns. So I think I feel very lucky to have the photography as a resource,
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, it's good for me to catch up with you, I suppose, and I know you for many years. I kind of alluded to it there at the beginning that I kind of grew up in my photography with you because I got to know you, I suppose, really after I really decided that I wanted to get better at photography. And coincidentally, I met you then as well, I suppose, through Munster Landscape Photographers. And I mean, we've gone out on a number of shoots together over the years, I suppose, and it's been a great eye-opener for me in what I've learned from you, and I suppose even from the crack that we'd have and the locations we'd go to. It's been a kind of a fun journey, So it's like, how many years do I know you? So
5, 6 years maybe.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years. Yeah,
I think
it was when I set up MLP.
Yeah, and I actually think I was only thinking the first time I met you was John Delaney with you. God rest him.
He was.
Yeah.
God rest him. He was. Yeah,
lovely
he
bloke,
was.
Yeah.
When we were on our moon chase down in Fota Castle.
That's right. Yeah. So that was
2014 or something like that. I think 2013 I set up MLP.
Okay.
And I think you were one of the founding members of it as well at that point. Yeah. So yeah, we've had many a journey, I suppose, together over the years, and some, like I say, some great locations. And I suppose, for our listeners, Rodney, if they don't know who you are, I suppose, tell them, who is Rodney O'Callaghan?
I'm I suppose primarily I'm a landscape seascape photographer. I'm drawn to that's the genre I've been drawn to, and that was kind of formulated, I suppose, by my early years in photography, joining Mallow Camera Club, where I would have been, I suppose, the likes of John Houghton. John would have been a great. John was very hugely inspiring, and he inspired us all to go to travel to Kerry, really, and he really opened our eyes to what was around in the landscape in both, say, the Dingle Peninsula, which is my favourite place to shoot, and also Killarney, and they're probably my two favourite places to shoot today. I've been photographing about 14 years. My young lad is he's 14 to be exact, and Kieran is 14. I have a daughter 17. I bought my first camera really just to document the children growing up.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I bought a bridge camera, a Panasonic Lumix, I think, 6 million megapixels.
Wow, 6 million, man, that was big.
It was 600 quid to boot. So everything was matched.
Yeah.
And I just went from there. I found the creativity that was, I suppose, that it allowed me, because it had it had aperture, it had shutter speed, it had program mode, and I suppose I hadn't a clue, Darren. I didn't have I'm 48. 14 years ago I was 34, so I had never gone near a PC. So the biggest thing I had, I suppose, that was electrical, was the remote control for the television. And probably the mobile phone. But as a fella, like I don't know were the smartphones even out then.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. They might have just been coming out, I suppose, at the time. But they wouldn't even have been out then. They'd be the Nokias.
Yeah, as a friend of mine says, I don't have a smartphone. I have a stupid phone. So, so they weren't. I don't think they were out then. But yeah, so I started with that. I held on to that for about 6 months. I think Kieran was born in May. So the following Christmas, I went off to Cork, of course, and into O'Leary's and Camera World, and
Oh yeah.
came out with my met John Horgan in there, and came out with my first DSLR, which was a Nikon D70S.
Mm-hmm.
That was the start of, I suppose. The bug had already been planted earlier on, but that was kind of
Mm-hmm.
the, I felt like I had a real camera.
For sure. I suppose, like, when you think of it that way, and you have the better camera now, and you say about
Mm.
the creativity, like, was it landscape photography you started to kind of really get the bug on, or was it different other genres of photography? Like, have you been drawn to that, or have you tried other different genres?
I suppose initially it was the camera. I was photographing everything and anything that moved at all was being snapped up.
Shot, yeah,
And
yeah.
then when I went into Mallow Camera Club, I was introduced, to the different genres. Like you had street photography, you had landscape, you had portraiture. Um, all of a sudden, I was seeing different things. And
Mm-hmm.
it was the landscape that kind of captivated me most. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was lucky enough, I suppose, to meet the first night I went in. I met two of my very good friends now, Dennis O'Leary and John Flynn. Probably met John, I'd say. Have you?
I think I have,
Yeah.
yeah. I think I have, yeah. Yeah.
He's the only photographer I know to this date that has never taken a straight photograph in his life. They're all crooked, but he fixes them after. We'd be out and he'd be showing me a photograph, and I said, "John, it's lovely, but it's crooked. I'll fix it after." So,
I'll
uh,
fix it later,
yeah, I
yeah.
fix
So,
it
so
later.
yeah.
And I'd have
You
been too precise then on the other spectrum, so we're kind of two spectrums. But yeah, um,
and when you were in the club, then I suppose, and you met the two guys there, and you've been exposed to the different areas and such. Like, was it a case that you went, yeah, I want to know how to do that, or were you shown how to do that, or was it something that you kind of went, how did I do that? And then you went off and tried to figure out all the controls and everything then on the camera for yourself.
I suppose we were exposed to whatever was going on in the club, but clubs are actually a very busy place, and
Mm-hmm.
the only time you'll kind of find anything out is at the end when people are sitting around. People are having a
Congregating.
chat after, and that's kind of the best time for anyone if you're into a club. Hook up with your man over there. He's a landscape photographer. Go over there and ask him a few questions. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I suppose myself and the two lads decided we'd start going out together, and that's kind of where it kind of started. The ventures down to Killarney, down to the Dingle Peninsula, and we learned off each other really. And
Mm-hmm.
I suppose John used to always say to me, like, like if I have something, I want to know how to get the best out of it. So I would read up on it. I would do the research,
Mm-hmm.
whereas John
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't. John would be pressing buttons and whatever comes out came out at the time.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
as a result, I was kind of the technical person, and the boys were taking photographs, and if something was wrong, they were over to me. So, so that's kind of how I suppose I got into. I work with people today. That's kind of how it all started for me. I was kind of the person that people came to for a bit of guidance and
Mm-hmm.
a bit of help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I used to always say I knew too much.
Well, you know what, you can know a lot, but
Yeah,
if you know what's
exactly,
right,
exactly. Yeah,
it depends. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So yeah, and
yeah.
I mean, and if you think about it in the different kind of clubs, and like you mentioned there, been involved in different camera clubs and societies over the years, how has that then, you think, shaped your photography for where it is today?
Um, I suppose camera clubs, they're great, but there is a downside to, let's say, competitiveness. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and when you
Mm-hmm.
introduce competitiveness in any club,
Mm-hmm.
you tend to have problems. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
fantastic place to go and learn, fantastic to meet other people, but I suppose for me, I was a person that preferred to be out rather than a
Mm-hmm.
person that, yeah, it's great to be competitive. It gives you the edge. Um, it wasn't kind of the be all and end all for me. I prefer to be out taking photographs. I didn't want to have the pressure of, well, I must go out now and take a photograph because there's a competition coming up at the weekend. So I wanted to be solely driven for my love of being out and taking photos rather than for competition, and I suppose that's where I met someone actually the weekend below I met him last week below in Kerry, and they said to me, "Oh, I put in this photo into this competition and it got slated." And I said, "Well, it was actually Terry McSweeney slated it." So anyway, but my kind of reply was, when you join any of these clubs, you kind of have to leave any bit of sensitivity at the door. You leave it at the door. You don't go in thinking that people are going to tell you, "Oh, that's a fantastic image." You're going to get the worst when you go into these clubs. People are going where there's opinions, you're going to get them. And that's why you go into these places. So I think clubs are fantastic, but you must take them for what they are. They're great places to go and meet people. If you enjoy the competitiveness, fantastic, but don't be disappointed when things don't go your way. You can be very disheartened and very disillusioned by clubs, but they're fantastic places to be. But you must take every club, no matter what it is, for what it's there for.
And you know what? It depends on what you want to get out of it as well, I think. Because if you want to go to a club, I mean, okay, I've never been in a photography club, and it's been over the years, many people have said to me, "Geez, Darren, would you join our club? Would you join our club?" And I don't want to join the club. Not because of anything like from a competition point of view, but it's what my motivation is. Why do I want to join the club? And if you want to join the club to meet people, fantastic.
Exactly.
Because you'll meet people that are going to be like-minded, they're all about photography, and you'll learn from those people as well as a byproduct in relation to it. If you want somebody to rip the shit piss out of your photographs, okay, go there too, because you might get that and you might get some honest opinions. Exactly. But where I think you might get the challenge there is, you kind of said it a moment ago, is you have to leave your ego at the door.
You do.
Hang that up, because if you bring that in with you and expecting it to be stroked and massaged, and it's not, you're only going to be disappointed. Whereas if you leave it there and you do get good feedback, you take it for what it actually is, because you're not expecting it to be that way. And I think that's where you mentioned a second ago about the competitive side in people. Competitive side in people can come out no matter what you're doing. Exactly. And I mean, we mentioned a second ago about MLP, and I've mentioned a number of times on the podcast about the amount of work I would have done on that group over the years to build it up to what it became. But then I started to introduce competitions, and that's when you see different sides of people coming out, and you start to see people, a competitive nature, but trying to find and vying for ways to win something. And I think that's where what I wouldn't like about the whole competitive side of a photography club per se. You know?
The green-eyed monster comes out from time to time, doesn't he?
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, absolutely.
Well, we have that ourselves, we have that ourselves, and that's only normal, we have that ourselves from time to time. Clubs, they're great, and they're great on one side, and on the other side they can absolutely kill you. You say, I've never gone back. But look, for me, if I never joined Mallow Camera Club, I don't think I'd ever be down the direction I'm probably in. Very grateful for that.
Which is it. Exactly, and I mean that's where it can be different, I suppose, for what everybody wants to be able to get, or what you might end up getting from a byproduct of being part of that club, I suppose. And exactly. I think, when we look at that, and when you were in the club, you alluded to it a second ago, you went off and you go find out things and such like that. Were you somebody who people would go to within the club to kind of go, how are we going to do this? Ask Rodney.
Yeah, I suppose I was with the two lads, John and Dennis. Our group kind of grew, and it kind of expanded over time, and there was probably 5 or 6 of us in at one stage. And as John Flynn said to me, he says, "You knew all about your camera, but you couldn't take photographs," So, which probably did happen. I probably put too much time into, and I was focused on maybe the technical side of things rather than worrying about what was in front of me and just capturing that, But that kind of came later. I enjoyed the journey, and it's a journey. It can be hugely frustrating, absolutely frustrating. When I got my camera first, the bridge camera, I was reading the manual, and what are we talking, 14 years ago? I don't know how prevalent was the internet for learning, and
very minuscule, I would imagine, in regards to what was out there anyway.
So
plus you would be able to have downloaded anything pretty fast, because you would have had the dial up.
But I didn't even have a computer then, so I was landed with this digital camera, and all of a sudden it was a case of either taking the take in the card into the chemist, or
Yes.
get a computer and try and put them onto the computer. And so that was kind of the next stage for me in my photography, was learning the computer, And I remember I worked for a guy at the time, and he says to me, he had a computer, and he said, the hardest thing, look, and he pressed the button down there. He says, turning it on, that's the hardest thing. After that, he says, you'll there's no problems.
And you know what, right? The reason I was just kind of thinking there about the different settings and such like that is because, like, you've probably seen it over the years that as somebody new joins a club, they've got their expectation, and they can get frustrated when they don't know how to get that photograph, right?
Yeah.
Or you get somebody that knows how to get the photograph, knows all the technical things, like, and John Hooton would say, yeah, but you don't know how to take a photograph because you don't know, you're not thinking about taking that photo. So I suppose with that in mind, if you met somebody today and they said, Rodney, I'm thinking of getting into that photography. I saw some of those pictures there online. I'd love to be able to go to get them myself, and I'm going to go off and I'm going to get a camera. What would be the kind of the best advice you'd give to somebody who's starting out in photography?
Okay, the first thing I suppose, look, I'd ask them, what exactly do you want to photograph? And what's very important also is the budget. What's your budget? And it's like anything. You have to put huge amount of time into something if you want to get the most out of it. Like we all know that you just point the mobile phone now and it takes the most amazing pictures,
It sure does, absolutely.
And the problem then, and like you'd have it the same as I would, you get out your camera and it's nothing like what you see on the mobile phone, because the mobile phone is an image that's processed in camera, almost probably HDR like, and our cameras are nowhere near like that, So budget is number one. You'd want to be tailoring the camera for the specific requirements of what you're going to photograph. But you have to put in the time, Darren. There's no fast tracking. I suppose, well, if I was to say fast tracking, there is. You can go and get some tuition from the likes of me or any other tutor or educator around the country, that will kind of set you on the right track. And I suppose I'd liken that now to the golfing grip. When you start off golfing, if that grip is poor, you'll carry that with you throughout your
For sure.
It affects the swing and everything, So get a good standing, get a good start, a good structure, and if you're spending a lot of money on the camera, invest in yourself as well, and get, if you're a person that is quite happy to go on the internet and trawl. There's loads of valuable information available, but put the effort into getting to know about the camera first. Join a camera club, great place to start. Or I think everyone now has somebody that is interested in photography. Look, you have all the forums now, like MLP there. I'm sure I've seen plenty of questions over the years there. What's a good starting camera? But time and putting in the time is everything, putting in the time. You have to put it in.
You have to. Look, exactly that. You're not going to be able to pick something up and know how to use it in the first instance. And I think more importantly, if you actually understand that you have to invest in yourself, you will get better. The more you do something, you will get better. But as you say, if you're doing it wrong from the very beginning, then you will be harder to set that right the further you go on as well. And it's interesting, you mentioned it, actually, what we'll do there is we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and let's talk a bit more about learning and workshops, will we?
Yeah, cool, Darren. Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, we'll be right back after this.
Hey guys, this is Nick Page from the Landscape Photography Podcast, and you are listening to the Irish Photography Podcast.
And you're very welcome back to the Irish Photography Podcast. So, Rodney, we alluded to there at the end of the first the first part about learning and investing in yourself and workshops. So, let's talk a bit more about workshops, right? And I suppose to kind of tee it up for you, when I first met you, I knew straight away that you were able to teach people, and you had a very good way of explaining it to people. And, I remember even at the time, from my own point of view, that like I said earlier on, I grew up with photography and I got better with photography because meeting up with people, and you were one of those people that I would have met up with. So, when you had mentioned at the time to me that you were thinking about, doing workshops, I immediately, if you can recall, I said, yeah, absolutely, do it right away. And there was no hesitation from my point of view, because I could see that there was an innate ability there. And again, as you mentioned, I could see where it came from, because within the club, with the guys, you're helping them and stuff like that. But to go a step further then and decide to become a workshop leader, when and why did you start and consider to be a workshop leader?
I suppose, that's a great question, Darren. Initially, I suppose I had been traveling around the country, I would have had organised trips away from my friends. The lads that I would have got to know on the camera club. I have a few friends in the UK that would come over, that I would have met on my travels, and I'd organise a trip once a year. I suppose it started off with day trips. I would have been the person that would have organised it all. We'd be leaving there at 6 o'clock from the Arches in Mallow every maybe once a month, and the groups were getting bigger and bigger, heading off down in cars. Then I kind of progressed to organising weekends away. I suppose I found myself organising the whole lot, from kind of locations to meeting other photographers to accommodation. I was keen to do a workshop I had the idea of doing a workshop in Antrim, because I knew Antrim fairly well.
Okay.
So I began to shoot with Emer Collins. Emer's a very good friend of mine. We decided to do a workshop in Antrim, primarily because we wanted to earn money to travel.
Okay.
That was
good motivation.
That was the motivation. No, I wasn't very prevalent on social media at the time, so it was Emer was doing all the advertising. She advertised the workshop, and an hour later she contacted me. She said, "Rodney, that's sold out." She said, "Will we do another one?" And I said, "Yeah." So I contacted the hotel and I said, "Look, can you book us in again the few days after?" And so they confirmed all that, and we put up another one, and that sold out. So that provided us with the funds to travel to Iceland.
Okay.
So
brilliant.
Iceland, that was probably say November. Iceland was booked for the following March. It wasn't until I was over in Iceland then that I came across a workshop group. I noticed that the leader was more or less a guide. That he was a leader, but he was also a guide, and it was a very relaxed kind of scenario. And I was watching, and I was saying to myself, if I was one of those clients, I do feel I'd want a lot more attention than what they were getting.
They were getting.
Yeah.
Okay.
How I work, my clients, number one. Clients are always right, Darren. Even if they're wrong, they're right. It's like the customer in the shop.
For sure.
If they come in, you don't tell them they're wrong. You
For sure.
you work around it. I just felt that I could do that and give a better service, and probably I was looking at the price of workshops as well, and I felt that I could do the same job for less and still make a fair wage. I don't mind telling you, I came back and I advertised two workshops for the October. I advertised one workshop for the following October. Couldn't sell a place in it. True as God, couldn't sell a bloody place. And I was saying to myself, what the hell is going on here? I think no matter how you advertise something, unless you're known, unless people have faith in you, you can forget about it. No matter how much you price something, unless you kind of have a track record of people kind of traveling with you, and you have those recommendations, and you have them posted on your website that people can go and look, forget about it. People must have confidence in you. So I think it took a while for that to build, and I'm really enjoying it now. I'm really enjoying it. I love what I do. It's a dream job. There's no question about it. I travel to quite a few countries in Europe. That's not because I suppose that initially kind of happened. The work isn't here in Ireland. I always liken, the Irish. Let's say Paddy. Like if Paddy has a nail, and it's a big nail and he can't drive it, he just buy a bigger hammer. We like to do things ourselves, and we our last resort is paying someone else to do something we can do ourselves. So big nail, big hammer. So we just won't pay anybody. And I probably like that myself over the years. So I think
for sure
workshops in Ireland, I feel, are kind of difficult for that kind of reason. Sure, I can drive down there myself and I'll get my own photographs. You will, but if you go with a guide, you'll get the most out of it. This is why we're there. I'll make the most of your day for you. You'll be rolling. You'll be dead by the end of the day. By the time you're finished at me, you know, you'll be knackered, but you'll have the most of your day. But I suppose we're less inclined to go abroad. You know, we're less inclined to take that chance in going abroad. So that's where I come in, and you know, there's several other operators there alongside myself, and you know, we take all that hassle away from you. You know, you just turn up at the airport, and we organise everything for you. You know.
And you know, you mentioned here even in regards to the airport, but even from a local point of view, right? So, like Ireland, we've said it before, I suppose, you know, in many conversations you and I have had, but I suppose even on the podcast I've said it before. Ireland punches above its weight for the amount of locations that we have. For such a small island, we are blessed to have such variety. I mean, you know, you've got cliffs, you've got seas, right? You've got beautiful islands, you've got lakes, you've got woods, you've got forests, you've mountains. I mean, all we're short effectively is a desert. I mean, we don't have a desert. Now, at the same point, you know, when you look around Ireland, there's a number of places that you could go to and you'd like to go to, but you may not, number one, know where they are. Number two, you may not know the right time of year to go there when the light is going to be right for that place. You may also not know how to read the weather.
Yeah.
You may also not know in regards to what's a plan B if the weather isn't right. And guess what? 9 times out of 10, the weather is wrong. I mean, the Irish weather is very hard to predict except for its cloudy chance of rain. I mean, look, that's the easiest job in the world from a weather forecaster point of view, if you call it that. But when we're looking for specifics, unless you know what to look for, you really can't do it yourself. You might be lucky that you got lucky when you were there in the conditions, but as far as planning it and knowing where you need to go, absolutely, a guide is an important place to be, or sorry, important thing to have with you. But the place then to be is a plethora of choices. So, like, from workshops in Ireland, where have you held workshops in Ireland?
Okay, I suppose close to home, we would have Killarney, we'd have Dingle.
Yeah.
Dingle, my favourite place to go. I've been to Donegal, Antrim, Waterford on the Copper Coast. I've done them above in White Rocks with Emer, above in Killiney. We've done them above near Morrington in our home place. I've advertised one for the Beara Peninsula, but I think there's too far down. No one wanted to travel, you know. Donegal is is a fair long ways away as well, but Donegal is special, like, you know.
Here's an interesting one for you, Rodney, right? And I agree with you, Donegal is absolutely beautiful. Donegal is special. But Beara is beautiful.
Yeah.
And Beara is a place that is so overlooked because you're going to travel all the way down that far. You might as well just skip over onto the other peninsulas because you've got more to look at. You can go into the Kerry area and stuff like that. You can get lost in those areas a lot more. But I remember mentioning MLP, you know, and I organised meetups over the years, and I went to different areas. Started one down in Killarney, I had another one down in Waterford, and then I did one down in Beara. And when I did the one in Beara, I think I had 8 people or something like that were going to go, and it ended up being 3 people because I didn't realise how far away it was. You're from Cork. You didn't realise how far away it was. But the fact is, it is far away, even if you are from Cork, because to get there, it's down the very, very bottom. But there's so much to explore on that peninsula alone.
It's amazing.
So much.
Yeah. For me now to get, say, to Alihiz, it would take me about 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is fine. You know, it takes me 2 hours to get to Dingle. I'm 2 hours and 15 out to Slayhead. Like, I suppose a lot of what I do, when you talk about planning, you know, a lot of what I would do is, like, I'm based, you know, like yourself, Darren, I'm only 20 minutes from you, a half an hour, you know. Like, we can look at the weather, and if it's poor in Kerry, we can look at Waterford, you know. I mean, we're right smack in the middle of the south of the country, you know. So 2 hours, 2 hours either way, we can be in the 2 corners of the country, more or less, you know.
For sure.
And another 2 hours we can be above in Clare, you know. It's like the lads above in Dublin, I suppose. Now, for you and me to get, say, to Glendalough, we'd have to. That's a good 4 hours. But if we were to go straight, it wouldn't be. But we can't go straight, unfortunately, because of the mountains. But
exactly,
yeah. But Ireland,
and that's the challenge.
Yeah, Ireland in general, you can be anywhere in the country in 4 or 5 hours, you know. And we've every kind of diverse landscape at our beck and call.
We have, you know, and I mean, look, you alluded to there a moment ago about Dingle, and Dingle is also one of my favourite places to go shoot. But, you know, even if you look at the locations that you go to, right, it's not just about going to one location. I mean, where are you going to take photos? Clarny National Park. Okay, where? Clarny National Park. No, but where in Clarny National Park? And when in Clarny National Park? And at what time of the day or what time of the year are you going to be in that spot? And I think that's where the key of it comes in, is having that knowledge to be able to plan a workshop around that. And, the other advantage, I suppose, really, and it's something that I've noticed, even when I went to the UK, to Snowdonia, I didn't have to think. All I had to do was turn up and follow the leader, basically.
Yes.
I didn't have to think. I didn't have to worry. I didn't have to look for an alternative. It was all there. I could just basically sit into the back, and I didn't even have to drive.
Yeah.
I was being brought there, okay? So, from that point of view, you even in Ireland, right? You want to go and take photos in Killarney. Okay, you could go around to Killarney. You could drive down yourself. You might get the timing all wrong. You won't know the location. You won't know the distance it takes you to get from A to B.
Yes.
Whereas you could just, off you go on a workshop. And okay, granted, now at the moment, even on one-to-ones, you have to travel separately. But you're going to follow somebody.
Yeah.
They're going to bring you to the places that you need to go to. And you're going to be taken care of as well to be able to learn not only about the location, but also how to take the shot. And I think, that's in Ireland, and that's fine. That's not that far of a distance to travel.
Yeah.
But then, as you mentioned a moment ago, doing a workshop abroad, right? So it's one thing to go to Killarney for the first time. Okay, you're still in Ireland. Okay, you're in Kerry. Some people might say it's a different country, but okay, you're still in Ireland, right? But in the bigger scheme of things, right? If you want to go to, let's just say, Italy, and you see beautiful pictures in Italy, and you want to go there yourself, the amount of work and research you have to do in advance is huge.
Yes.
The amount of planning that you have to do to get there, for accommodation, for transportation, where's the right place to eat, I won't know. And that's then, I think, where the international workshop comes in, because all you have to do is get on a plane. That's it. When you arrive, everything else is taken care of. You'll be met at the airport, you'll be shown into your car, you'll be shown to the car, you'll be brought to your accommodation, and then guess what? You'll get up and you'll go to these beautiful spots. You won't have to look at sat-nav. You won't have to worry about this and that. Everything will be all timed around what's required for it. So I think even on that point, an international workshop is even more valuable. So, where abroad have you done international workshops?
Yeah, I suppose I'll touch on that on research abroad in a second. So I suppose I've been to Norway, Lofoten Islands, Iceland. Iceland is fantastic, but it's a very high risk, especially during winter. I've been to Morocco more recently, Slovenia, Tuscany. In the UK, I've been to Northumberland, I've been to Cornwall, I've been to the Lake District, I've been to Dorset. In Scotland, I've done Skye, I've done Glencoe, I've done the Hebrides. Hebrides are amazing, Darren. Oh my God, absolutely, And
I heard that, yeah.
Oh, they're stunning. I was hoping to go back there in October, but Jesus, everything was wiped out.
On pause. Yeah.
Yeah. But as regards to, I suppose I have a look at what's trending, maybe, and where people are going, and there's a few things, I suppose, to look at. First thing to look at would be the cost of flights in to wherever I'm going to run a workshop. If the cost of a flight, say even to mainland Europe, is more than €300, I'd be swayed away from it. I wouldn't mind paying over €300, €300 to €400 going to Norway, but not paying €300 to fly to the likes of France. Or, I suppose when you look at a workshop, you would say, okay, that's the price of the workshop, and then first thing you do, you won't book it. You go and look at the price of flights.
Yes.
So if the price of flights are reasonable, well, then that's manageable. But if the prices of flights into places are colossal, there's no one going to come in my workshop. They just won't. I'm limiting who I can have on my workshop. And I don't want to do that. I want to make them available to everybody. I try to price them as fair as I can, but at the same time, I must make money.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
So that's the first thing I look at. The availability of reasonably priced flights. The next thing is a base. So for the likes of Tuscany, I flew into Rome. The flights into Rome arrived in the morning, and which meant I was able to take my group and get them to Tuscany for 2 o'clock. We'd be out shooting in the afternoon. Had I chosen to fly into Pisa, they didn't fly until the afternoon, which meant there was no photography the first day, and it was also an early flight home on the last day. So airports you fly into are very important. You know, you always want to try and give clients a bit of a shoot the first and last days. You know, it kind of stretches out the workshop, and that's good for me as well, and it gives better value to the clients. You know.
For sure, for sure. And I suppose, you know, when we start looking at that then, like, you know, with hosting different workshops and such, and you teaching people to get better at photography or to find compositions or whatever they're looking to achieve, what have you learned now from hosting workshops?
Okay, so what I've learned obviously is people are at different levels, you know. I've also learned that you know, you have to kind of figure out a person fairly quickly. You know, I might have them for 3 days, 3 full days in a workshop, 2.5 days either side. So you know, I have to connect with that person. You know, and if I don't, they it's quite possible they'll have a bad experience. You know, and so I must try and figure out everybody's ability fairly quickly, what they want from the workshop. Now that's a question I ask as well. You know, their abilities and have they any special requests for the workshop. You know, if I find out that someone is struggling with composition, no, I'll concentrate on that with them, or if there's another aspect of it. So it really is working with people, Darren. You know, a workshop is the photography is the easiest part of it. It's finding out people's needs, and working with them to make sure that they get what they wanted when they booked the workshop. You know.
A- And I suppose, you know, with that in mind, right? Like everybody in life has obviously got a bit of anxiousness when they do something new,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, somebody who's never been on a workshop, and they might be anxious about going to, I don't know if I'm going to, no, but I could be the worst that's there. They might be all
Yeah.
laughing at me, or I could be too good for everybody else, and then them like, okay, or you know, maybe they won't like me, or maybe I'll get lost, or maybe I'll be late, or whatever it may have been. There's a number of
Yeah.
fears, I suppose, and anxiousness that are natural in human beings. So, from your point of view, what would you advise somebody who's never been on a workshop? What would you advise them to expect?
Okay, I suppose. Look, what I do starting off when you'd about 2 months before the workshop will actually start. I actually set up a social media group. It could be a WhatsApp group, it could be a Facebook, and I'll put all the people. Now this hasn't backfired on me yet, but it might someday.
Okay.
Because there might be someone saying, "Oh Jesus, he's going. I'm not going in the workshop. Like I get a cancellation." But what I do is I set up a group, and I invite the people in that are going in the workshop. And if they're a bit slow to come into it, I might send them an email or I might send them a private message and say, "Look, I set up this group. All the people that are going, you'll see who's going. It's a private group. You can ask what questions you want." And I remember I set one up actually for going to Iceland a few years ago, and Mark O'Brien and Terry McSweeney were on it. And I
Okay.
had a chap from the UK, Max, and Max comes with me all the time. And of course, the Kerry men started firing crap at the Englishmen over the soccer results. That was the first introduction in the group, like, you know.
You hadn't even got in to take photos yet
No,
at this point in time.
and I'd
no.
never met this man Max, you know, and I said, "Jesus Christ Almighty, what's going on? What am I going? He might cancel, you know." But turned out to be the greatest. He was the greatest crack of all times, you know. But that was the time we had the bad weather. But yeah, so I introduced a group. You get to see who's there, and you can ask whatever questions you want, you know. And I think it's a good kind of a starting point. And so
Nice breaker, yeah.
when you arrive at the airport, then you might spot this fellow over there, and you say, "Oh, geez, that's your man in the group," you know. So it's a bit of a breaker. And it's important to get people to gel, you know. I think that kind of puts them at ease. I'm well aware it could work the other way, but
For sure.
it hasn't yet, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so like when you come in the workshop, I suppose wherever it is, you know, I I I give my I have expectations, you know, like I have expectations, and my expectations are that everyone will get what they signed up for, you know, that they want. Like I'm showing these pictures and of these beautiful places, and I must I must bring that to fruition, you know. I must take them there,
Mm-hmm.
and if they
Mm-hmm.
can't see the image that I took, it's my job to help them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I just find, you know, people like I think you said there that, you know, you'll struggle in a new location. That's my job. Just start people off, and once you start
Mm-hmm.
them off, just a little kickstart. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's all they need. You know, and
And I think that's really important as well, because everybody needs a bit of a prod, but
yeah,
you've given them the prod in the right direction.
yeah,
But even with that in mind, I suppose, like, an interesting one I think would be, how do you ensure that, because there'll be differing levels of skill in the actual field. So, for
yeah,
example, if there's 5 people out,
yes,
and okay, I want to get this, but I'm not very good at that. The person next to me doesn't want any tuition at all. They know it all already, but yet they're still not getting the photograph, let's just say, and they can't
yeah,
figure out why, but they're too proud to ask, let's just say, in that point of
yeah,
view. Or then you've got somebody that's mediocre but wants to get better, and you've somebody who thinks that they're not good, but they're actually very, very good. So there's a huge different plethora of different skill sets. So
yeah.
how do you ensure, like, that the different levels are catered for from each group?
You have to be very clever, Darren, in that one now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you kind of have to go. I suppose the way I do it is I go around to each individual, and it might only take a minute or two, and I'd always have a look, you know, and I might just point out little things, but I'd never let anyone else hear me saying what I'm saying to the individuals, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so they
Mm-hmm.
don't know whether I'm giving them help or what I'm doing. So it doesn't hurt anyone's kind of self confidence, if you know what I mean, or ego. There's
Mm-hmm.
no ego bashing, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Absolutely.
just quietly given maybe a little help, and sometimes you give it to them and they don't even realize it, you know. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's the key.
Mm-hmm.
I think the key is knowing when to kind of just give a tap on the shoulder and when to leave them alone, you know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
Um,
And I think, you're right too, I think, because in that point of view, if somebody is comfortable,
yeah,
then they'll enjoy it.
exactly.
And I think that's a bit, and that's a very good insight, I suppose, really, to the importance of, being on a workshop with a
Yeah,
group of people, but enjoy it, because it is fun. It's the memories of
it
the
is.
people that will stay with you a
Yeah,
lot longer, I think, than the photographs. I mean,
yeah,
I've met many people that I've gone out shooting with over the years, even in different groups, and it's the people that you talk with. You don't, okay, you can admire your pictures, but you don't have conversations with your photographs.
yes,
And I think the people that you meet there can end up being lifelong friends.
yeah,
Because there's relationships, and also, I think, more importantly, there is a common theme. There's a common love or passion for photography. So the conversations are kind of easily flowing when you want to bring it back around photography. But how often, when you know it yourself, when you're in a group of people, you talk about photographs, yes, but by the end of it, you're talking about everything, and
yeah,
everybody's just getting to know everybody, what they do, what they've done.
yeah.
You're sharing jokes, and that, to me, I think, is a key point. I suppose that you'll learn not only from the workshop leader, but also the people that you're there with.
Oh, without a doubt, Darren. You know, and what I find with a workshop, my as the workshop goes on, my kind of input gets less and less. You know, because I can see the
Hmm.
confidence kind of building, and
Hmm.
probably middle or after, you know, the two 2/3 of the way into the workshop, I have people coming back to me, showing me stuff, you know, and that's fantastic, you know, and they're jumping out of
Absolutely,
their
yeah.
skin, you know. So my kind of work kind of starts off kind of it's a heavy load starting off, and it reduces, you know, all the time. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, like it's people really are it's working with people. You know, that's what it's all about. The photography is the easiest part of it. It's the people you have to
Hmm.
work with to make sure that they can capture, just to give them that confidence to capture what's in front of them. You know, that they can actually do it. You know, it's not only the great photographers that you see posting the fantastic images. You know, they can do it as well. You know.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and Rodney, that was a great insight, I suppose, really, in regards to, workshops and what you do, and, the whole idea of getting people better. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take another break. We're going to come back now, right? We have 3 questions that we ask all of our guests. I'm not going to leave you off them just because you're a friend of mine, okay? So I'm going to ask you exactly the same 3 questions. So, yeah, be ready now for your
Brilliant, Darren.
good answers. So, look, yeah, we'll be right back after this.
Hello, I'm Mass Peter Iverson, and you're listening to the Irish Photography Podcast.
And you're very welcome back to the final part of the Irish Photography Podcast. So, Rodney, like I alluded to, we've 3 questions that we ask all of our guests. And, the first question I'm going to ask you is, you must have many of them, but tell us, what is your funny photography story?
Yeah, I have to laugh at this now, Darren. So I suppose this happened very recently, you know, and I recently did a podcast, Darren. Do you know this isn't the first time? You know,
All right, yeah.
I've been on a podcast before.
Okay.
It was actually only last night.
Okay, yeah, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we did the podcast, went great, and got to the end of it, and
Right.
the podcast leader said to me, "Right, Rodney, will you send me your audio?" So
Okay.
I looked at my screen, and I tapped my mic just like this, and I could see the audio bouncing up and down, but there was nothing recording. So that was with you, Darren, last night.
I know I said I'd play along with it there for a bit, all right,
Yeah,
but you know
so,
what? That was, that was an interesting one, Rodney. I have to tell you that, my man. That was an interesting one for sure.
I have this saying when something goes wrong, I say to someone, "You're a toolbox." So I was the toolbox last night.
And you know what? The interesting thing about it is that, you know, like we're having the conversation for the second time this evening.
I
So, you know, the
yeah.
audience, I hope you haven't realized that this is our second time having this one. But at the same point, yeah, we didn't realize it till the very, very end. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a very fresh, that's a very fresh story, Rodney. Fair play to you, boy. But you know what? At least you got good experience for coming on this evening anyway. So you'll be more wax lyrical, I think, so far. Yeah. Well, look, you know what? These things happen.
Do you know, it was great. I mean, I've enjoyed it down to the ground. I have to say, I've enjoyed talking to you down to the ground, you know, and I'd recommend anyone to come on and do it, you know. So if there's anyone out there that, you know, you think you can't do it, yes, you can. You know, you can, of course.
I'll mind you. Don't worry. I'll mind you. And even if you don't press the record button, I'll still mind you. It's all right. It's okay.
No, when he came on this evening, I have to say he was a bit disillusioned, looking at us to say, "Oh, jeez, I have to do this again." You know, the enthusiasm that he showed last night wasn't there tonight.
Yeah, well, I hope I pressed record anyway tonight. No, that's one thing. Imagine that.
You did a great job.
Thanks, Rodney. Oh, good story, my good and good fresh story as well. Yeah. Okay, second question, right? And you know, I know you do suffer from a bit of gas, okay? Not the other type, but the actual real gas, the gear acquisition syndrome. You have gone through a number of camera bodies over the years, and you kind of alluded to it at the beginning and the intro. So, like, what gear do you shoot with right now?
So right now, Darren, I've moved over to the Olympus Micro Four Thirds system, and really enjoying it. I suppose the initial move was a bit of gas. I suppose, yeah, I like that. I said I'll get that for my travels. You know, a lighter system. No, you couldn't get much lighter than the Sony system. I'll be honest with you.
Yes.
But yeah, you know, I'd seen a few clients and workshops, and they had it, and I was just amazed at what this little camera could do. So back in March, probably at the start of lockdown, just before lockdown, actually, I purchased it off of. I'll just give Paddy Barker a shout there. Paddy's fantastic.
Yeah, good man, Paddy. Yeah.
And Paddy's dealing in Olympus, and you know, I think he's also dealing in other brands now as well. But I bought it off Paddy, and you know, I think it kind of saved me during lockdown. I'll be honest with you. It gave me, you know, something new, and it definitely did. You know, it definitely, Jesus, saved my bacon during lockdown. It saved my sanity. I was able to go down to the park, and I started to see things in a new perspective, totally. You know, so I soon realized, I suppose, that how good it was, and I purchased a couple of more lenses. I got them secondhand on eBay, I think, and you know, that was March. I never again took the Sony system out of the bag.
Wow.
I had 4 Sony bodies, Darren, you know, 4 full frame Sony bodies, which I had. No, I had an A7 I, an A7S, which is fantastic for video. I had an A7R1. So like what I had really in the bodies was I had a 12 megapixel, 24, 36, and 42. You know, and now I'm gone back to 20 micro four thirds, and I have much more enjoyment out of that camera than I have gotten in all the years out of the Sony. You know. I really do feel I have a camera now that I can do anything with, you know.
And it's interesting you say it there about Paddy, like, because I remember going up to visit Paddy on a number of occasions, and he's telling me about the Olympus, and I'm looking at it and going, geez, yeah, it looks interesting, all right. And then it's Micro Four Thirds. I'm like, okay, no, I don't know if I'm interested in that. And then he said to me, no, it has this cool feature that if you're doing, like, you like doing long exposures, Darren, like, it actually builds the long exposure on the back of the screen for you, so you can actually see it. And I was fascinated. I was like, wow, Jesus, what's that about? So, like, is that something that you think is unique? Is it something that you use? Is it something that's a gimmick, or is it something
as regards being unique? I think a lot of the cameras have that built in now. A lot of the new Nikons, maybe even your Canon might have a peep.
No, the OSR doesn't have it. No.
But I suppose to explain it briefly, what it is it's called, is it live view ramping? They also have this thing called live composite as well, which is absolutely fantastic. But just about the long exposure anyway, you can shoot, if you're shooting on a base ISO of 100, you can get the screen to pulse 24 times. Okay, so it'll give you a view 24 times of how the picture is actually going, and you can space out that pulse. So you'll actually get a live histogram as well when it pulses. So it's actually so say if you have a 2-minute exposure, 24, say set the exposure for to show you every 4 seconds. So you're actually going to nail your exposure. You'll see it building on the back, and you'll get a pulse every 4 seconds, and it'll brighten and brighten and brighten and brighten until you can actually see what's going to come out. And
enough's enough, like, you see it cooking.
And like, if the light changes in the meantime, if it gets brighter, you can shut it down. If it gets darker, you can continue.
Continue on. Yeah.
So it's an amazing system, coupled with the image stabilization. Dynamic range definitely isn't quite there, but look, it's Micro Four Thirds. I'm not bothered. I think, look, I'm experienced enough that I can work with dynamic range anyway. I use, especially with the use of filters. I suppose the beauty about the mirrorless over the DSLRs, what you see in the viewfinder is what's going to come out. There's lots of pluses. Would be a fantastic system for any of the ladies out there that are listening. I'd highly recommend it. I know a few of my clients above in Dublin now. They shoot with it, and absolutely thrilled.
So lightweight.
Yeah, splash proof, waterproof. One downside, if there was one downside, on the plus, you have an enormous depth of field, right? Because effectively you have a 2 crop. It's a multiplication factor of 2. But on the downside, any speck of dust is multiplied as well.
Okay.
So a tiny little speck of dust becomes huge on the sensor.
And then that's it. Goosed.
Yes.
Goosed.
Well, you'll get rid of it, obviously. But that's the only thing I can. That's my only downside. A speck of dust.
How about if you? Yeah, but how about now if you think in regards to Olympus? I mean, Olympus now are no longer. They've been bought out by that Japan company, whatever it's called. Like, what do you think there? You think you're going to be able to continue with the iteration of what you have right now in Olympus, or are they going to kind of change it or rebrand it or strip it and repurpose it? What do you think it's going to be?
Yeah, I suppose the danger there, and everybody mentioned it, would be that is it Japan Imaging Company? Is it? I think that's what they're called. That the danger was that they'd buy just the copyright to all the technology that Olympus have introduced, and that they would then cease cease production and take away the technology that they bought, basically. But I think the reports are coming back that that's not the case. Since it's been announced, there's been several new lenses. There's actually been a new lens. There's a new, 150 to 400 Pro. It's a big white lens with is a 4.5 f/4.5 with a built-in teleconverter, and Paddy tells me he has that for $6,999, nearly $7,000. So
is that all? So get one for the weekend as well, like.
But the equivalent,
they come in different colors.
The equivalent, I think, you're looking at a 600, like it's a 300 to 800 f/4.5. It's an amazing lens.
Okay.
And I've seen some of the
interesting.
Yeah, look, you need to be you need to have a specific job for that. You'd want to be pulling money off of that every week. Sports and nature photography. You'd want to be earning serious money with that. To justify it.
For sure. To justify it,
Yeah.
absolutely. And speaking, I suppose, of earning money to buy equipment and stuff like that, the third question that I have here is a regular segment that we have in the podcast. It's called a VSP. It stands for Very Solid Product.
Okay.
And it's a piece of equipment that you would put your name to it. You won't leave home without it.
Yeah.
So, Rodney O'Callaghan, what is your VSP?
I suppose I'd almost feel naked without my filters, Darren.
Okay.
That's my kind of creative. That's where they allow me to be creative with shutter speeds. And I've always down through my photography, I've always been kind of mesmerized and intrigued by the whole idea of shutter speed. And how creative we can be. When we put on those neutral density filters, sunglasses, I call them,
Yeah.
So, it would have to be filters. After that, it would have to be a tripod, I suppose,
And when you talk about filters now for a moment, right, because you mentioned, we kind of alluded to it there with the whole landscape photography point of view, right? Some people swear by filters.
Yeah.
Some people won't go near filters. Because, sure, what's the point in doing that? I can do it later. I can just do a bracketed exposure and stuff like that. But when you want to do a specific type of long exposure, you need an ND filter to be able to catch movement in water. Okay, you can do it if you take a series of fast shots and then you go into Photoshop and you combine them, whatever.
Yeah.
Get it done in one photograph by just putting an ND filter on in front of it. But within your filters, you also then have a filter that you cannot replicate in post, which is your polarizer. And a polarizer is something that, is very, very valuable from a landscape photography point of view, because you need it if you want to be able to have a number of different creative, not even effects, but creative effects in regards to getting sheen off of water and stuff like that, It also brings out good color within the landscape itself.
Exactly.
But, with filters, like, are they all the same? Like, what do you use at the moment? I know you've gone through different types of them over the years, but what type of filter do you use at the moment?
So,
what different NDs have you?
So at the moment I'm using the Nissi brand.
Okay.
And I would have a whole range of filters ranging from 3 stop to 15 stop in the 100mm slash. The ones that slash square 100mm.
And square, yeah.
And in the circular screw on, which I would use for bad weather. That I can, I love to shoot in bad weather. I have a 3, 6, and 10 as well.
Okay.
And of course, what's a hugely important piece of kit is a remote. I know you use the handle wireless. I've had them over the years. I broke every fucking one of them, I'll be honest with you. I dropped them in the water.
Or lost them.
I got back to the cable, Darren, it's the oil. But that's a handle product as well, I think,
And you know what? It's interesting there because with landscape photography and long exposure photography, you mentioned the second thing there, which is vitally important, is your tripod. But also with your Olympus, like, you can get image stabilization for long exposure handheld shots per se. Okay, not ultra long, but long enough, right? So, like, when you're doing that and you're using your filters to go take the shot, and then if you haven't got a solid base that it's going to be on, you're not going to get a good shot. It's going to end up not working out for you, you know. So I think, like, what you've mentioned there with the remote release is one less thing to worry about, because if you have to press the button on the top, you can use a 2-second timer or a 10-second timer. But if you're trying to catch water that's coming through and you have a 2-second timer on, you have to now predict in advance of where you think that's going to be, as opposed to wait, bang, now you got it exactly for when you wanted to. So, a shutter release is vital, but also in combination with your filters and also the tripod.
Yeah, I would advise anybody starting off, if you're buying gear, if you're buying a camera, no matter what you're buying, go to somebody who has bought all these things, and we've all bought them. We've bought them several times. We've bought a tripod, that didn't suffice to our needs. We've bought filters, that we didn't need. We bought freaking gadgets for the camera that were totally useless, So before you go, like, I suppose you can buy online now, but if you go to the likes of all these camera shops, you have Paddy Barker, you have O'Leary's Camera World there in Cork. that's where you get the best advice for your requirements. You know, they won't sell you something that is
That you don't need.
that you don't need. You know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. No, that's a very good point, I suppose. You know, because like we mentioned many times here again in the podcast about different types of gear, and you know, I'd always joke and slag Dermot like that if it's shiny,
Yeah,
he has to have
I've
it,
heard you.
right?
Yeah,
And yeah, and I mean, look, the reality of the situation, he's not the only one that suffers from gas, because that's exactly what happens. That someone goes, "Oh, I have to have it because why? Because it's going to make my life so much better. My photographs are so much better. Blah 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 blah." And then all of a sudden, you open the box and you go, "This is lovely." You use it once,
yeah,
and that shine has gone off of it because it's either doing what you want it to do, or you don't know how to use it, or it actually does what you want it to do, and it was perfectly fine. But it was fun once.
yeah,
It's not fun to do it every single time, you know. So I agree with you. You know, ask people that will know whether or not it's something that you wanted to do. And you know, again, you know, expectation, I suppose, versus reality doesn't just happen when you're taking your photograph in the field. It happens at what, you know, there's no such thing as a bad camera these days, right?
no,
So you know, someone goes off tomorrow and says, "Oh, I have to buy an EOS 5, EOS R5, right?"
yeah,
Really? You have to buy it? Why? Because it's the best out there. Okay, but you're not. You don't need it. Why do you need that? Like exactly with the lens. Like, is that going to earn money for you every time you hit that shutter button? Because if it's not, that is an expensive paperweight in reality for what you're actually going to do or get from another camera. You know, the EOS R that I have is a phenomenal camera. The 6D that I still have is 9 years old.
Yeah.
It's still a phenomenal camera.
yes,
Do you know? So, like, the amount of people out there that would think, oh, yeah, I got to get the new one, because you're going to get the new one because you're a magpie and it's shiny and you want to have it, you know?
yeah.
That's the reality.
We've
of it,
all
you know?
suffered, you know, as you say. But I think the best thing is, you know, go to the people that are using these products. You know,
Yeah, agreed.
send them a message.
Agreed.
You know,
Yeah.
photography. The photographers are great. All the people on social media, they all help you. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. And that's the biggest one, I think, like, you know, that you can learn from others, I think, and that's a, you know, a good way. And even this evening, I mean, you know, I hope our audience are learning from you as well in regards to your thought process behind photography. And again, with the workshops, I think it's, you know, a very good insight into that. But guess what, Rodney? Believe it or not, we're out of time. For the second time, we're out of time. You know, this has been a fun chat, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. And even doing it the second time round, it was actually even more fun, I think, even though I kind of knew where we were going. So I suppose for our audience, Rodney, you know, over the next number of months, like, I mean, what's next for you? Have you workshops coming up? Is there, so what can people expect from you in the next couple of months?
I suppose in the next few months now, I'm working. I've time off over the Christmas, so I have a few things up there on my website. For anyone that's off, if you're off over Christmas, you know, and you want to head out for a day, you know, there's stuff on my website. The likelihood of starting back next year early abroad isn't going to happen. So I'm fingers crossed for my first tour will be in Tuscany the 1st of April. I'm
Hopefully.
very hopeful to get back there. I've started to do a little bit of video. You might have seen one there.
I saw them actually, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not going to be doing. I don't think I'm going to be waving the wand outside and doing these vlogs.
Come on, we need more people. It can't just be. Come on, we need more.
No, I enjoyed what I did. You know, where it's going to go from there, I don't know. I might. I suppose really look, what I want to produce is, you know, that's what I do during the day. You know, if you come with me, that's what you get. You know, that's what you'll experience.
That's a flavour. Here's a taste.
That's the whole idea of that. You know, it's promoting myself. You know, and I want to do more of it. I want to I suppose catalogue my time, especially when I go abroad. You know, I've been to so many places now that, you know, all I have is pictures, but I want more. I want video as well to show them off better. You know.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. I think, you know what, you'll get bitten by that bug, I can tell you, from the video editing point of view, because the video editing is something that you either love or you hate.
Yeah.
And, you know, even already I can see what you've made. You're enjoying it, I think, because you've got some nice cuts, you've got some nice transitions and stuff like that. So I think, yeah, you'll probably
it was all done on my phone, Darren. It was all done on my phone.
Well, there you go, job done.
Yeah.
Do you know?
So
I mean, but
I was transitioning that now to the PC, just like we were talking about, you know, the photography. Like, I'm in the same position now as someone starting off. I have to transition from the iPhone to the PC, you know, so it works both ways, you know. We're all in it.
I'll come when all this is over and we can travel easy, I'll come out and I'll give you a crash course on how to put the videos together. Not a crash course, I'll give you a course. I don't want you to crash because most of your stuff will be on the drone anyway, because you won't be onto the camera. But yeah, and I suppose the final thing there from that, Rodney, where can people find more information about you?
Yeah, so look, I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook. I have a website, rocphoto.ie, www.rocphoto.ie, Rodney O'Callaghan Photography. I'm also on Flickr. I think, as I said, Flickr is it's a strange.
Nobody knows what Flickr is.
It's a strange place. Are the aliens taking our photographs? Do they own Flickr? I don't know what's happening. There's someone. It's interesting. 500px. I'm on. I for me, it's my website. It's Facebook, and it's Instagram. And it's funny, over the last 12 months, I suppose I've been concentrating more on Instagram, because I think, is it more the younger people are on Instagram and kind of the older generation are on Facebook? I'm not sure. It's funny to figure out,
It's possibly true. I mean, Instagram is not exactly a social platform per se. Instagram is instant gratification. Look at what I have. Look at my photograph. Bang, there's loads of color. And it's interesting you say about Instagram and Facebook, and I suppose just to deviate slightly on it, I noticed that photographs on Instagram are super saturated.
Yes.
And that's what attracts people to it, because it's about color. It's an emotional blast of different colors that are affecting people, and they'll go, wow, look at this. Whereas again, Instagram is a visual platform. You look at the picture before you read the post, the text or whatever it may be. Whereas on Facebook, it's the other way around. Facebook leads with the text, but also finishes with the photo. And I think you have a different generation for sure between the two of them. But I think most likely, Instagram is a better platform. But also Instagram works better from the hashtags and stuff like that as well.
Yes, and if I could just touch on one more thing, Darren, for posting to social media, I post a lot. I do. Everything I have goes up. I think actually when you used to do the MLP there, I'd nothing to post because I'd everything posted. I was struggling. You said no, you can't be posted.
True story.
Can't be posted before on social media. I would struggle for an image, and that's the truth of it. But I think by posting enough images on social media, it's a good bar for you. You set the bar. You can see how your photography is going, and more importantly, if you post an image today and next week you look at it and you say, oh Jesus, what was I doing there? It's a good benchmark. You make mistakes and you visually can see them yourselves. Your friends can say, Rodney, geez, that was a bit oversaturated. Like my images, if I have an image there that I'm looking at and I just don't know what to do with it, I might actually send it to Emer, and I'd say, well, you have a look at this, there's something not right, and we all need a little help and guidance and advice, but
100%
put out your images. They're a good benchmark for you to work off of, and you can only grow in confidence by getting your stuff out there.
And kind of like, if you put up all types of images, you will see the variances between your banger shots, your mediocre shots, and your meh shots. But you may not see that right away.
Exactly.
It might take you a year down the line and you go, what was I thinking? That shot, I loved it. Now look at it. Oh my God. After I put the saturation slider to 12. It only went to 10, but I pushed it a little bit extra as well. And that's where, if somebody only posts their best, then you will still see a transition, by the way, on your best. You will still see your best getting better and better and better. But by showing all different types of photographs and all different conditions and all different scenery, it really gives you a good kind of a benchmark. And also with this whole Facebook thing about memories popping up now as well, I think it's a very interesting one too, because it gives you a memory of something that happened 4 years ago or 5 years ago, So that's an interesting.
They can't all be bangers, They just can't, put out your work and have a good portfolio and a good style, and you'll see your style developing, I think we all, that's what we all want. We all want the style,
Yeah, absolutely. So look, Rodney, we are out of time, my friend. We are out of time. It actually went faster this evening than it did yesterday, but actually went more or less exactly the same length of time. So yeah, maybe it felt faster. I don't know. But so like, Rodney, thanks a million for coming on. I hope the audience as well, have gotten a lot from it. I know I have anyway, even having the chat from it. And so look, it's unusual actually. Normally when I sign out in the podcast, I say from me in Cork to somebody else, wherever they are. But now we've 2 Cork fellas on there. So from me in Cork to you in Cork, see you later, bye.
See you, bye. Thanks for having me on, Darren. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rodney, man. Slán go fóg.
Hey guys, if you dig what you're hearing, why don't you jump over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and don't forget to share with your friends. With all that done, we'll see you next week, and remember, keep shooting.